Living in harmony is possible if you know your emotions and how to handle them. I am Dr. Carmen Roman, and I will share with you the current psychology by myself or by interviewing experts who will inspire you. Learn how to live a life of fullness and how to recover your emotional harmony. Welcome to Emotions in Harmony. Hello, my dear amigos in harmony. How are you? This time we are really happy.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. This time we are really happy talking about Spencer Christian's life. Yeah.
It's good to be with you.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to talk about my life. I'm glad you're interested in it.
I am very interested. As you guys listened, probably by the time you listen this interview, we talk about gambling in Spanish and gambling in English. You have all the information there, the psychological and clinical information there. You have it. And if you want the details or whatever, go there. This interview is about fun.
Yeah,
Yeah?
that's right.
That's right. I am very honored to have Christian Spencer, and you have here the book. Run to the store, run to Amazon and get it, because Christian, after a couple years of not reading books, because I am only into podcasts now, my brain got burned after the PhD.
I'm sure, I can imagine.
I haven't read a book fully and very interested until this one.
Thank you. I feel honored. You told me that when we first met. You said you had not been reading books for a while, but you found this one interesting.
Yeah.
So I feel quite honored. Yeah.
Yeah, I really was like really enjoying. You have a beautiful way of writing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Well, I feel that I'm very fortunate. I've had some rich life experiences. I mean rich in the grand sense. I don't mean in terms of money.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share my life experiences. And I have many stories to tell that I thought might inspire or uplift or help other people. Or might maybe even amuse and entertain them.
Yeah. Sometimes out of entertainment or amuse comes some transformation too.
Yes, that's true.
So we are opening the set just for you to talk about your life, and of course we will have a conversation and whatever, but I really want people to know the Spencer behind the cameras.
Okay. Well, I'll start with my early life. I grew up in Virginia, in a rural town in Virginia, in the old racially segregated South, you know, in the southern states. I was born in 1947, so I'm turning 72 this year. From the time of my birth up until I was nearly 20 years old, there were laws throughout all the southern states, including Virginia, where I grew up, that required rigid racial segregation. So if you were black, if you were a person of any color other than Caucasian, you couldn't go into the restaurants, you couldn't use the water fountains in public facilities, you couldn't use the same restrooms. You just didn't have equal rights. We were second-class citizens. And so every day of my life throughout my youth, I was living in a society that told me that I had to stay in a certain place, in a limited place. My opportunities were limited. I was not treated equally under the law. And in fact, as if that weren't bad enough, that black people couldn't go into the same restaurants or the movie theaters or the restaurants or the same schools as whites, there were also attacks, physical attacks. People were being lynched or brutally beaten because they showed up in a place where they should not be. But despite the ugliness of that, the injustice of that, the evil of that kind of system, my parents, who were remarkable people, somehow instilled in my brother and me this belief that we could overcome this, that more opportunities were coming if we could just work hard and be prepared to embrace these new opportunities when they came, that we were going to have a better world. They believed in the American dream, and they were people of great faith. You know, they taught us to pray and to lean on God and to ask Him for the strength and guidance to deal with adversity and to overcome it. Well, by the late 1960s, when I was approaching age 20, civil rights bills had been passed, and laws had been passed that were guaranteeing equal rights. Very often we had to still fight to go to court to gain those rights, but at least the laws changed. So these opportunities my parents kept telling us would someday come our way finally opened up. And because I had been given by my parents such a positive, hopeful, aspirational approach to life, rather than look back with bitterness at how I had been treated before, I embraced these new opportunities with a positive, hopeful attitude. So I was in college in the late 1960s. I worked in political campaigns and decided I wanted to become a journalist. So once all those barriers that had been there were removed, and I knew that I could go out and compete for the job or the career of my choice, I began looking for a job as a news reporter, and I got my first job as a television news reporter in 1970 in Richmond, Virginia. And once I was on the air and embarking on this new career, a new world of opportunity opened up to me. So that's my early life. By the time I began my TV career, I had gotten married, and I was on the air in Richmond, Virginia. I gained a certain level of recognition and prominence, and I started getting offers from television stations in larger markets. So in a very short time, in a few years, by the mid-1970s, I ended up in New York working for ABC. By that time, my wife and I were raising a family. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl from the mid to late 1970s. By the mid-1980s, I had moved on to national TV on Good Morning America with ABC. And in the 80s and 90s, that was my job on Good Morning America.
I'm just going to ask questions just
Please,
because
jump in
I
there.
can't.
Yeah.
What did you do? Did you notice that you learned the English accent, or did you took special classes for that?
I did not. When I was a very young child, I recognized, I was aware that most people around me in the South had this Southern accent. But when I watched TV, I noticed that the people on TV didn't have that kind of accent. They sounded more polished to me. They sounded more refined or more sophisticated, whatever the right word is. And I decided I wanted to sound like those people, not the people around me. So as a young child, I was very conscious of the language and how I sounded when I spoke. So I grew up on my own without any kind of regional accent, which was helpful to me when I started my career.
I can see that,
But in the late 1970s, early 1980s, even as my career was taking off and I was moving up to national TV and providing a great a life for my family, I fell into a gambling problem, a gambling addiction. And that gambling addiction stayed with me for nearly 30 years. And even though I invested myself fully in the role of being a father and a husband, and even though I worked hard at my career and never missed a day of work, this gambling problem was so destructive, so devastating, that it was almost all-consuming. I mean, I began to fall into a lot of debt. I fell behind on federal income taxes. I had problems with the IRS. I was constantly borrowing money. I took good care of my family. I always paid my bills, but because of all the money I lost gambling, I was constantly worried about the debt that I had accumulated. And I started to feel foolish. I started to feel guilty, and I was ashamed of myself. And I kept the gambling problem pretty much a secret. I mean, my friends and my colleagues at work knew that I liked to go to the casinos. They knew that I liked to take my family and friends to Las Vegas on a weekend vacation. But they didn't realize that I had this compulsion and that I was living on the verge of financial ruin. They just saw me as this happy guy who enjoyed his work and was on TV every day having fun. So this was something that a problem I wrestled with for nearly 30 years before I was able to find my way out.
Did you have anybody who show a concern, or like a family member or a friend say, hey, Christian, Spencer, this something that you are doing, or
Well,
be careful or something?
Yeah, my wife showed concern. She
Okay.
began to realize after a few years that my gambling was excessive, and that it wasn't just something I enjoyed doing once in a while. That it was it was controlling me. So every once in a while, she would sit down and say, "Honey, I think you need to take a look at your behavior here. I mean, your bills are mounting up, and you're always borrowing money, and I'm just worried." So we had those conversations, but I had convinced myself, because I didn't want to acknowledge that I had a problem, I had convinced myself that I was just enjoying expensive recreation, and that because I was earning a lot of money, and I thought of myself as being a resourceful person, I would find a way to deal with it and get things back in order. And then because I had convinced myself of that, I would also make that argument to her. Oh no, it's going to be okay. You know, I'll find a way to work things out. But she was the only person in the early stages of my gambling who recognized how big a problem it was. I think my friends at work knew that I was a fun-loving guy, and I loved going to the casinos for a weekend of fun. And because I was a high roller, a VIP gambler, I was gambling at a high level. I always received that VIP treatment from the casinos. They would give me and my family a big luxury suite, a penthouse suite to stay in, and gourmet meals at the restaurants, and front row tickets to all the shows and sporting events, because they knew I was going to gamble at a high level in the casinos, so I didn't have to pay for any of that. And because I enjoyed that kind of treatment, I would take my friends with us on a little vacation to Las Vegas or to Atlantic City or wherever the casino venue was. And all my friends could see was that we were getting this VIP treatment, and we were going to these amazing shows, and we were having these wonderful meals. They didn't think about, I don't think they ever saw in me a sign that I had a problem.
A sign of a stress or anxiety or...
That's right, stress or anxiety. I was feeling stress and anxiety all the time, but it didn't show on the surface. So the only person who really knew in the early years was my wife. But then maybe 10, 15, 20 years into it, when I was constantly looking for ways to keep my my finances in order, I was constantly borrowing money from here to pay off debt over there. When it got to that point, there were a couple of personal friends I went to when I could no longer borrow money from the banks, and I would work out some kind of loan with them, and they would say, "But you're earning a lot of money, and I thought you were doing so well. What's the problem? What's happened here? Why aren't you able to go to the bank?" And I confided in a couple of them that I had hit a losing streak, in my gambling, and I didn't want to go to the bank and let the banks know that gambling was my problem. So they would make me a big loan, and of course I always paid them back. I always wanted to show that I was honorable and trustworthy, so I always found a way to pay them back. And then I think they would just forget about it and assume that I was okay now, that I had fixed my problem.
This is what I observe in the families that I work with, Spencer. I observe that there is a wave, or there is a season where the gambler is happy. Everybody's happy. They are spending together. I have the story of a couple years ago. I have a little girl who is a very low income, very, very low income girl, and came to a session with something, I remember a toy or something that was expensive. And it was like, I asked, "Hey, how you got this?" And she said, "I got it in Vegas." And like, how you got to Vegas? And she said, "Well, my parents took me, and my daddy gave me $100 bill to spend." And that was a family that $100 will be their eating for the week.
It's a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, and it was like, oh, okay. So I start getting the family, getting the mother, and slowly getting the father, and then learning more about them. And the feeling is we are happy. And I'm very happy when my daddy go to Las Vegas,
Mhm.
and we all have a good time.
Yeah.
But then they don't recognize this kind of a hole that they are digging.
That's right.
It's very late when they recognize that.
Yeah. My children began to recognize it when they were teenagers. You know, when they were much younger, you know, they knew they were getting on the plane to go on a trip with mom and dad, and we would, if we took a vacation, we lived in the New York area most of my career, but we would come out to California on vacation, and then on the way back home we'd stop in Las Vegas for 3 or 4 days. And whenever I would win, I would do a lot of special things, you know, for the kids, or send my wife on a shopping spree. But when I would lose, I would try to present the same kind of image, you know, happy image to them, but deep down inside there was so much stress and anxiety. By the time my children were 14, 15 years old, they knew that I had a gambling problem. And every once in a while, my son found it difficult to talk about it because he didn't want me to feel like he was being critical, or or that you know, that he didn't respect me anymore.
It's very sensitive.
It's very sensitive
to talk about it.
Yeah, it is. But my daughter somehow would occasionally find the right words. You know, she would say, "Dad, I'm just concerned. You know, I know you're having fun, but I'm just concerned. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to tell you what to do with your life." Interestingly enough, when I finally reached a point in my life, nearly 10 years ago, when I started to feel like I don't want this in my life anymore, it was my daughter. It was a conversation with my daughter that was the turning point. You know, by this time she was, you know, an adult. My daughter's 41 years old now, so at this point she was about 32. And she came out to visit me here in California from the East Coast, and we were sitting down after dinner just having a father-daughter conversation, and she said, "Dad, you know that I'm getting engaged and I'll be getting married soon, and I plan to bring grandchildren into your life." And she said, I'm really concerned about the path that you're on in life. I worry about you. She said, "You know that there are so many things about you that I admire and respect, but she said, I want you to ask yourself if the way you're living your life now is the way you want your grandchildren to see you. Is this the behavior you want to model for them?" She said, "You know, you've overcome so many difficulties in life, you know, growing up in the old segregated South, being poor, and you moved into a profession that is very competitive, and very few people reach the level of success that you've had, and you met that challenge. But I want you to defeat this gambling thing also, and get that out of your life." And it was a turning point. That was the point when I knew I didn't want gambling in my life anymore, and I wanted to be honest and acknowledge my problem and see if I could conquer it.
I'm so glad you are sharing about this conversation with your daughter, because one of my questions is what your family members said or did that helped you to get better.
Yeah.
And that was these honest conversations. I am concerned. You may be not doing the right thing. It's your life. Seems like your daughter didn't take your power from you. It's like you are the one who decides, but...
You're so right. That's true. She didn't approach the conversation in a way that made me feel like she was taking the power away from me, or that she was being the parent and talking to me like a child. She expressed her love and respect, and she talked about the things that she admired in my character, and she talked about how she recognized the challenges I had faced in my life and how I had overcome so many challenges. But then she reminded me that this problem that I had, the gambling problem, was not something that was imposed on me by the outside world. It was a problem I imposed on myself.
Yeah.
It was a self-made problem. And she basically said, "I know that you have the strength and the ability and the faith to overcome that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So love from around is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
So important. I've seen so many people with gambling problems because I spent so much time in casinos.
Yeah.
So many people who didn't have the support group around them to provide them that unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I've also seen problem gamblers who had people close to them who cared about them but expressed it with anger or rage or threatening, like, if you don't quit, I'm going to leave, that kind of thing. I was so fortunate that wasn't the way my support group, my loved ones, communicated with me. They communicated love and concern first, and that made me become more introspective, you know, to look at myself more honestly.
And let me, I want to be successful and describe what I see when I work with somebody who gambles. It's like their mind is like this hummingbird.
Yeah.
It's so fast.
Yes.
Yeah, that as a psychologist, I need to be able to catch up some information, and I have seconds to say something that it will be impactful. I have so much respect for the mind of the gambling because they are looking for opportunities.
That's right.
It's like they are opportunities and they find opportunities, but then somebody who relates, they need to find this opportunity to express their love and concern.
What you said is so true. The feeling that I got from gambling in those early years was this feeling of excitement and euphoria, and it was almost like a drug. I've never used drugs, but from what I've heard drug addicts describe, this was the feeling I got from gambling. And my mind was, like you said, constantly racing, trying to figure out ways to win and ways to beat the game. And then once I started sinking into debt and having financial problems, my mind was constantly trying to figure out how to deal with it, how to put things in balance. Where can I go to borrow money next? And whenever I felt like I was being confronted by anyone with, you know, what are you doing with yourself? My mind was working quickly to come up with excuses.
Oh, really sharp excuses.
Oh yeah. So you're right about the mind of a gambler. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple clients that they are just like fast in saying, no, I don't have a problem. Yeah.
Denial.
Like, did I don't pay my rent for my family? The rent for my family? Did I don't pay the expenses? Like, no, you did. You did. Yeah. But what I always tell them is, what is the time that you are taking away from your family?
Yeah, it's a lot of time. I was, I was always determined when I realized how much time I was investing in gambling to try to match that, you know, with time spent with my kids, so that I wouldn't feel guilty that like I had deprived them or neglected them. But you're right. I mean, the time I invested in gambling and the physical energy and the emotional energy, it was. I just can't believe it now when I look back on it. I don't know how I survived that and maintained my health. Not to mention the loss of money. So I lost time. I lost connection, you know, with the people I cared about most and the people who cared most about me. And I lost a fortune. I lost so much money. There was one point in the mid-1980s where I was in so much debt from gambling that I had fallen far behind on federal income taxes. And because I was unable to satisfy the IRS demands to pay my back taxes, the IRS seized the home that I lived in with my family.
Wow.
And forced us to move out, and they sold that house at an auction. And that, I mean, you would think that would have been the wake-up call I needed, right, to get me to stop gambling. Well, I stopped for a short time, just long enough to settle with the IRS and move my family into another house. It was maybe 8 or 10 months, not quite a year. And once I started to feel like I was back on my feet again and I was in control again, I went right back to gambling. Yeah, I also went through a bankruptcy.
What do you think it was? Like, you say, okay, we lose the house. Now we have really big problems, economic. What was? I want to get into your mind and see what was the explanation for you to say, I can do one more night, or?
Well, when the problems with the IRS first came up, and I knew I was being audited, and they were demanding something like $365,000 in back taxes, I had negotiations. I tried to work out a settlement. Once I realized they were not going to settle with me and they took my house, fortunately, I was able to move my family into a rental property that was almost as nice as the house that we had lost, because my earnings were high enough that I could manage that. But then I had to look at all the other debts that I had because of the gambling, and I couldn't manage all of those debts, so I went through a bankruptcy. Now, that bankruptcy didn't erase my debt. It certainly did not erase the IRS debt. What it did was it discharged all the debts that I had to casinos. So all those casino credit lines where I owed $20,000 here and $15,000 there, that all got wiped out. So that gave me a feeling like I can start all over again now. So I did quit at that point for, as I said, maybe 8 to 10 months. I quit gambling. My wife was happy. I was devoting more time to my family and, of course, to work. But as soon as I got to the point where the IRS was paid off now and my other debts were manageable and I was getting money in my pocket again, I was tempted to go right back to the casinos, because I had convinced myself that now that I've been through this difficulty and I survived, I'm in control. Now I can gamble, at a I don't know if there's such a thing as gambling at a moderate pace, but I can keep it in moderation and not let it control me. But I was wrong, of course.
So that's the explanation is I can gamble at a moderate pace.
Right, that's exactly right.
I can just sit and do $1,000 or
Right.
$2,000.
Yeah, I can set a limit, right? But I never stuck to those limits. When I first started going back to the casinos after the bankruptcy, I would say to myself, okay, I'll take a limited amount of money, and if I lose that, then I quit. But very shortly after I started gambling again, the casinos started offering me credit lines again, even though I had defaulted on the earlier credit lines. And so when I was losing, I would say, whenever I would lose what was in my pocket, I would say, okay, I'll take out a credit marker. Yeah, and it started all over again.
What I see is a lot of strength and resourcefulness, because you were like, okay, we lose the house, we have a new house. Yeah, you never abandon your family in that.
No.
In that, so that sense of the strength and resourcefulness is like, it's also inviting to, I can take care, so I can go back and gamble 1,000-2,000 more.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's a blessing and a curse.
That's right, a blessing and a curse. That resourcefulness, you're right, it certainly is. There were so many lessons from early childhood that stayed with me throughout my life that were the values or the teachings that I leaned on whenever I found myself in any difficult situation in life. So in the worst moments when I was dealing with my gambling problem and with the debt, with the stress and the anxiety, I was still praying. I still felt the presence of God in my life. I still leaned on those basic values that my parents taught me as a kid. Confront your problem honestly. Don't blame other people for your problems if you know that your problems are self-created. And even though all those values stayed with me, I still gambled for 30 years. It was still 3 decades before I decided I'm going to get this out of my life, and I'm going to live a more purposeful life. I'm going to be the person my parents encouraged me to be, or the person my children want me to be, or the person God created me to be. Yeah. But it took me 30 years to learn that lesson, to get to that point.
Well, better 2 years than nothing.
That's true. That's true. One thing my parents always said to me and to my brother when we were growing up is, don't identify yourselves as victims. I think you read that in the book, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I like this sentence because it really gives you the power back.
That's right.
You are not a victim.
That's right. And they were very wise people. They didn't have a lot of formal education, but they were wise, and they said, other people may try to victimize you, and certainly the circumstances I faced growing up in the old segregated South were circumstances that victimized me in different ways. But they said, but don't identify yourself as a victim. That's not who you are. You're much more than that. And they said, if you start to blame everyone else for your problems, then you won't accept responsibility for those failures that were your fault, those stumbles or those mistakes that were your fault. And that stayed with me for all of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of my main work is working with victims of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, the word victim is just, yeah, it's somebody come and do something to you, therefore you are a victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's different than behaving like a victim.
Right.
It's just very different.
Yeah.
So my work is to help them to feel the empowerment and get back on their feet with the less damage, emotional damage possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if we can make a case for your gambling, and a very actually solid case that the system, the casinos do their job, very good job in creating the atmosphere
Right.
for somebody to keep gambling. Like, it doesn't make sense that somebody already is in bankruptcy and we offer more credit line, yeah. So there is a good solid case outside that it was a dance.
That's
Yeah.
true.
It was a society dance, and what I am reading about the literature is somebody is more likely to gamble if they start at young age,
Yeah.
and if it's part of their social life.
Yeah. That's true. I started in my late 20s. I was 28, 29, something like almost 30.
Yeah.
And it was a social thing at first, you know. But you're right. The casinos create an environment that is electric. I mean, you know, you walk in there and you just feel high.
Yeah.
And then once you start playing, there are certain inducements that are offered to encourage you to play at a higher level, to gamble for more money. That's when the comps come in, you know, the complimentary meal or the complimentary room or the suite or the tickets to the shows. Now, in saying that, I'm not blaming the casinos for my problem.
Yeah.
They're in a business and they know how to
of course.
offer a product that's very attractive that will make you keep coming back. And that's where, you know, the individual's self-control comes into play.
Yeah, and as we say to teenagers, if you are going to your bunch of friends who smoke marijuana, you are most likely
That's right.
will end up. So no, we don't blame the circumstances, but definitely we recognize that the circumstances are enticing.
That's very enticing.
They are inviting, and you know, it's like making you feel like everything is good, and life will be good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. It's very enticing. You talked about the social aspect. I can remember very clearly trips to the casino, for weekend trips that my wife and I made with other couples, or that I made with just a bunch of guys who were friends of mine. None of them none of them had the same problem I had. They loved to gamble, but at a certain point, when they would get tired and go to bed, I was still there at the tables gambling all night. I had this compulsion to chase my losses. That's a common term in gambling, chasing losses. Many of my friends who gambled would quit at a certain point and say, well, this is not my night, I'll just go get some rest. But I would never quit. I would always keep trying for that comeback, for things to turn around. They don't turn around.
They don't turn around.
No, they don't.
It doesn't happen. For whoever is listening,
No,
it doesn't happen.
The best turnaround is when you turn around and walk away. That's
Yes.
the turnaround.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your very rich life and work, because that's something very important. Is the idea that somebody gambling or somebody in any kind of addiction is that they have poor emotional life, and sometimes it's not true.
That's true. I had a great emotional life, apart from the anxiety and the stress that I felt because of all the debt I created through the gambling. My life was so rich in so many other ways. My personal family life was great because I loved my wife and my kids, and I have a wonderful relationship with my kids now and my grandchildren. And I had a job that was a dream job. I mean, I was one of the 3 principal co-hosts on Good Morning America for 13 years, from the mid-'80s to the late 1990s. I did weather, but I reported on a wide range of other topics. I met and interviewed all the people in the news from fields of politics and entertainment and sports and the arts. I've traveled to all 50 states on various assignments. I've traveled to 5 different continents across the world on various work-related assignments. So I've had a richly rewarding career, for which I'm very thankful. And I, you know, I mean, I'm humble about this. I'm not saying this in a boastful way when I talk about my career. I'm saying it in a thankful way. You know, I'm grateful that these opportunities have come my way. I've met and interviewed 6 U.S. presidents. I've formed a personal friendship with Jimmy Carter. I was a personal friend of Muhammad Ali. So the foundation in life that my parents gave me when I was young, the direction that they gave me in life, has really paid off, you know. But despite all these wonderful, joyful things I had in my life, there was this self-destructive path that I was on for so long, and how I kept the two in balance, I don't know, other than I had a lot of love around me, and that love gave me a lot of joy, and my career gave me a great sense of fulfillment and joy. So in my darkest moments, when I felt like I had nowhere to turn, I knew I could turn to the joy and the love that I got from my family and the joy that my career gave me.
And also that you are pretty smart, so probably you are like, we talk about resources, you are like, I need to keep my job, I need to keep the income, I need to keep the way of living. I like, see, you are almost 72 and you pretty much are on your feet very well.
And I'm still working in a career that I love, in a prominent role. And yeah, I'm very fortunate.
So it seems like you went for 2 years to a war with a monster and then you win.
Yes, I'm the victor. Yes.
And those monsters are inside.
That's, you know, they are.
That's
inside.
the worst.
That's true. That's true. Well, you know, I've tried so hard to understand what it was about gambling that kept me going at it for so long. I mean, initially it was the excitement and the prospect of winning. But after many years went by, 15, 20, 25 years, you know, what was it that kept me that propelled me to keep going forward, trying to recoup my losses? I think I figured it out. I think.
Okay.
All right. So
tell me, because I have my own theories.
Okay, I want to hear your theories too. So in my early life, all of my life, I have at various times had to overcome challenges and adversity. So in my early life, obviously, the challenges of growing up in the old segregated South, and somehow I was able to survive and overcome that. I was always competitive in academics. I was competitive in sports. I played baseball in college. I've always been used to meeting challenges and winning in the end. Then I moved into a very competitive career where very, very few people reach a certain level of prominence, and yet, you know, I won that battle. So gambling was the first thing I didn't seem to have the ability to defeat. I just couldn't beat it, and I just wanted to keep going at it, because something inside me said, you can beat this too, you can win, but I couldn't win against that. And I finally had to recognize that I could not win. And
that's the hard part.
Yeah.
It's like, stop trying.
Yeah, that's right. So what's your theory?
That was one of my theories, that the need for competition, but the need to keep your brain working.
Yeah.
The need is like, oh, this is challenging, entertaining,
right.
I will be here, If we could put your brain into studying something, you probably will be creating something to go in the NASA or something.
You're right.
The same amount of energy and stuff. So the need for competition, but also
that makes sense.
The high levels of stress of your job. Everybody expresses their stress in different ways. And you say it's one of the jobs and looks a happy moment there, but I can imagine the levels of stress working for TV.
It is a very stressful profession, but I think I don't know what it is in my psychological makeup that has equipped me to handle that stress so well. But I look at most of my colleagues and I can see the effect of the stress on them. They worry about the ratings, they worry about the next contract. I've been so fortunate that I don't have that worry. I've just always felt that if I'm an effective communicator and I go out there and do the job in a way that allows me to make a personal connection with the viewers, that's going to get me the next opportunity, get me the next contract. So I don't.
So that was not your stress.
Not so much.
So it was out of bored. You were bored.
What was it? I'm not sure.
It's like, oh, I'm bored. I am going to
Yeah.
put my ability here.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I just recognized early in my career that many of my colleagues were making themselves crazy, worrying all the time about every little thing. You know, what were the ratings like this month, and you know, how many fan letters did I get? Those things never bothered me. I guess I just focused on doing my job and having fun while I'm doing the job. And well, I'm very fortunate. I work in a job where I get feedback every day from my consumers, if you will, right? So the TV audience is made up of my consumers. So I don't have to have someone do some research to see what the profit margin is. When I walk out on the street or go to the grocery store or go to the pharmacy and people come up to me and say, oh, I watched you do the weather last night, I like what you do, then that gives me the confidence that I don't have to worry and be stressed out all the time.
I read that they actually send you gloves and hats and whatever when you were in the storms. And oh my God, how cute!
When people see me out in the weather, in unpleasant weather, you know, if I look cold, people would send me gloves and hats, umbrellas. I still get gifts. Viewers send me gifts all the time. That's
cute.
Yeah, it is cute. It is. I mean, I feel like I've got a lot of friends out there I don't even know about.
Yeah. So I like for my theories not to be the ones. Yeah, it's okay because psychology is just a bunch of people writing books together, but it can never be about one person.
Yeah.
Psychology can say whatever, your life is another thing. Yeah.
That's true.
So the other, and I already shared with you before the interview this, and you say no, so I want to say it. The other idea that I have is by growing up poor, the family constellations therapy say we have the sense of loyalty to our families. Yes. So if I get rich, which happen with so many people that earn the lottery ticket or whatever, they win the lottery. By spending everything and becoming poor again is my sense of loyalty, of belonging to my family.
Right.
So, but you say no. So tell me.
Well, I understand that because I think that applies to the vast majority of people who come from poverty and suddenly, you know, earn a lot of money so I think that's a very sound psychological profile, but I don't think it applies to me.
No, it doesn't.
No, because well, you know, once I started making a certain amount of money, I wanted to build my parents a new house and give them a dream house, and did that for them. And I wanted to provide well for my family, and I wanted to. I wanted to live a life that would make my parents proud and make all the people who encouraged me, my mentors, and what encouraged me along the way, proud of me that I had lived up to their expectations. So I certainly wasn't conscious of anything that made me want to continue to relate to being poor.
So your parents were happy that you were earning those amounts of money?
Yes, and I don't think it was about the money for them so much as it was that I had reached a level of success. I had done something special with my life.
Yeah,
they had always encouraged me to want to be exceptional in some way, to not settle for mediocrity. The money would come, you know, if I followed those other pursuits.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much about the money as it was about being successful and doing something special and meaningful with my life. And I fortunately got to do it on a grand stage where the public could see it.
Yeah. See, this is why I like theories, because theories is just a way of entering into somebody's life. It's like, yes, that may have happened, but also was the factor that your parents were proud of your success.
Yes. Yeah, they were.
And in family therapy, they say we need the permission from our parents, the blessing.
Yes.
To be who we want to be.
That's right.
So your parents were giving you the blessing.
And I've always felt the need to have their blessing. And then once my parents passed away, I felt and continue to feel the need to have my children's blessing. I want my children to be proud of me and to admire me. I want my grandchildren to, and that's probably why that one conversation with my daughter Jessica had such a profound effect on my ability to quit gambling and to change the path I was on, because having the respect and the admiration and the unconditional love of my children meant more to me than trying to win my money back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It is very profound.
Yeah. It's been an interesting life, and and I feel very fortunate and very blessed, frankly, that even at this point in my life, turning 72 in July, I'm still gainfully employed at a job I really enjoy, and I still have the energy and the drive to continue looking for new opportunities. I have now published my memoir. I want to write another book. I'm doing a lot of public speaking now, which is how we met.
Yeah, this is how we met.
So even if I don't remain in television much longer, because most people who are in my profession have retired before this age, I'm still excited and enthusiastic about looking for new opportunities.
So you are going around public speaking.
Yes.
And what is your book about?
So
Can you share?
Yes, the book is called You Bet Your Life.
No, the one that you are going to
Oh, the
write.
next book.
You don't?
I don't have a title for it yet, but it's going to be based on my real life experiences. So it's nonfiction.
Yeah.
It's about my own life experiences. And I'm writing a lot about the role that humor has played in my life. Both of my parents, I think many people who face adversity use humor as a tool for dealing with it. So I saw that in my parents. In a lot of difficult situations, they would rely on humor to give them the strength.
I truly believe in humor.
Yeah.
I truly believe in the healing power of humor.
That's it, the healing power of humor. Yeah. So a lot of what I'm writing now is about that, but I haven't come up with a focus yet, a clear enough focus that I could give you a title for the book.
We don't need a title. We need the topic.
It's a topic,
Yeah,
that's the
you are
topic.
the topic.
It's about the role that humor has played in my life and how you can have a healthy balance between humor and seriousness.
Yeah.
A person who has a great sense of humor isn't necessarily a silly, shallow person. You can be a person of great intellectual depth and have a very serious view of life, and at the same time you can have a laugh and not take yourself too seriously.
In this podcast, Christian, Spencer, sorry, Mr.
That's okay.
Christian, I would say Mr.
It's okay.
Spencer, in this podcast we take so deep, serious topics that we need to take it with sense of humor.
I think so.
It's a balance. Like we talk about suicide, we talk about sexual abuse, we talk about the most painful human experiences, trauma, that sometimes Brenda and we just need to laugh.
Yes.
Yeah, because
it's
just
important.
like what I always say, no matter what I saw, I have been working with people who have been group rape, like difficult, very difficult lives. I always see them laughing.
Yes.
Again.
That's true.
I always, when we work, when there is the space, when it's the safe space, they laugh.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that's throughout the ages. I think people who have faced great adversity or persecution or painful experiences, as you said, in many cases they have been able to survive that and gain strength from finding humor in their circumstances.
So I am going to be brave and say that humor may also help you to overcome
Absolutely.
the gambling.
No doubt about that. Humor has definitely, humor has been a part of my character, my personality, if you will, my entire life. And I think many people define humor too narrowly. They see humor as the ability to laugh or the ability to enjoy a joke. Humor is also the ability to laugh at yourself and not take yourself too seriously or your circumstances too seriously.
Sometimes I define humor also the ability to see light, to be light about yourself.
Yes, yes.
To be relaxed about yourself.
That's right.
Like, yes, we did this mistake today. I am in the recovery process. I need to start all over.
Yeah. The people, well, I speak to a lot of students, college students, high school students, and they ask questions like, when you make a mistake on the air, do you feel embarrassed? And I say, if I make a mistake on the air, I acknowledge the mistake and I laugh at myself. Because if I get tense and uptight about the mistake, then the people watching me, the viewers, will feel uncomfortable. But if I show that I am comfortable with my own mistake, I can laugh at it and move on,
Yeah.
then they can laugh too.
They can laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, we have been, Maestra Brenda and I, we have been doing Facebook Live for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Facebook Live is for mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have cats, we have children, we have people knocking on the door, we have everything. What we do?
Yeah.
Laugh.
Yeah. What else can you do, right?
Last time, Maestra Brenda, we were finishing the topic almost, and somebody ring the bell, and we were like, hey, bye.
Yeah.
So humor is another tool for healing.
It is a tool for healing. It's a great tool for healing. And you know, it's everyone, all of my family members who've been the closest people to me, my parents, my brother, I have one sibling, my children, and I've been married twice, both of my wives, all of the people who have meant the most to me, even in the most difficult times, have also appreciated humor and its healing role. So yeah, I can't get away from it.
Probably you have this sense of being so lucky, but I am going to tell you that what I think about your experience in your life is, yes, you were through this very painful situation of gambling, but you were also kind of protected by the love, by your own sense of humor, by your own discipline. Many people around Spencer, they don't make it.
It's true.
A lot of suicide, a lot of depression, very heavy depression. They don't make it.
I know. If only they had the love and support that I had. So many people are just facing their problems alone.
Yes.
With no one to lean on, no one to talk to, no one to give them that unconditional love.
And this is what keeps me going in this in this work, because it's like if they can have this video or this audio and listen again and again, hopefully we can make them not to feel less lonely.
Yes, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
You don't want people to feel lonely or isolated. That's one of the reasons I wrote this book.
Yes.
I wanted to share my struggles as a public person with the world, so people will know you are not alone. That's the message. You are not alone. No matter where you come from in life, no matter what position you reach in life, we all have problems and struggles and fears and uncertainty. You are not alone, and I'm going to share with you the struggles I had and the fears I had, and I'm going to share them with you honestly. Yes. Because I hope that can help.
And you did an amazing job on that.
Thank you.
Because as I was reading, it's like I can see. It's not only about gambling. It's about being human.
Yeah.
It's like I can see definitely. I have been having my flaws, and I am working for it, and I am working. So it gives me hope, your book.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. If my book gives you hope, then I feel like I've accomplished something. That's what I want this book to achieve. It was a cathartic experience for me writing the book. It relieved me of my shame and guilt. But beyond that selfish purpose of helping me feel better about myself, I want to encourage and inspire other people and give them hope.
What do you see? What do you wish for? I am going to put together my question. Imagine all of these people who is going to the casinos right now, or roster fighting, probably in Mexico is fighting with the rosters, or whatever gambling it is.
Yeah.
What do you wish for them?
Wow. I wish for people to have enough self-awareness that they can be honest with themselves and recognize when they've reached the point where their gambling is a problem, where they are out of control. I had periods of that kind of recognition where I knew deep down inside that I needed to quit, but my pride got in the way. I didn't want to admit that I didn't have this under control. I didn't want people to see me as being foolish. I wanted, because I think most people who knew me thought I was a fairly smart guy, I didn't want to have them say, he had me fooled all the time. He's stupid, he's dumb, look at what he's done with his life. So you have to get over that. You need to, if you've got a gambling problem, you need to find someone you can confide in, someone you can talk to, but first you have to be honest with yourself and acknowledge the problem before you can acknowledge it to someone else.
Yeah, wow. Honesty,
Transparency. Yeah.
Getting
courage.
yourself, like pulling yourself to get help.
Yeah.
And help, something I love what you say, I love my profession, but I don't think so only a psychologist can help you.
Right.
It can be your friend, it can be a spiritual leader, it can be...
Yeah, it can be a friend, it can be a family member, a spouse, a sibling, a colleague at work, someone you trust.
Yeah.
If you're a person of faith, a minister, someone you trust, you feel you can open up to, someone who's not going to be judgmental,
Yes.
someone who's still going to accept you,
Yeah.
and care about you, but who will listen.
Yeah.
That's what I wish for people with addiction.
We have 2 minutes, and I would like to give you the 2 minutes so you can say, do whatever.
Okay. Well,
So what you want to say is, it has been an amazing conversation.
well,
Spencer.
thank you. Well, it's been an amazing opportunity for me because I really seriously want my life, all facets of my life, to serve as an example for other people of how we can find strength and courage to overcome all kinds of difficulty in life. In fact, there's something I'd like to read from the book very quickly. It won't
go
take,
ahead.
It won't take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think it's on page 119.
I have my own quotes.
Okay, all right. But and if we're running out of time, please let me know. But basically, what I say is, I want my life to serve as a source of comfort and inspiration for people facing challenges and difficulty of any time. No matter where we come from or what station we achieve in life, no one enjoys perfect peace. No one is without worry, fear, pain, anxiety, or self-doubt. Everyone experiences sadness, heartbreak, failure, embarrassment, and uncertainty. In many ways, the human condition is frail and flawed, yet in many other ways, the human spirit is strong, resilient, hopeful, and resourceful. So I want people who have all kinds of problems to know that if you find the courage and the strength to confront those problems, you can repair damaged relationships, you can rebound, and you can recover.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
It's
Spencer.
been a pleasure.
Thank you.
We have reached the end of another episode of the podcast Emotions in Harmony. See you the next week. Visit www.emotionsinharmony.org, where you can subscribe, find the notes, and be in direct contact with me. Thanks for listening.